Hello, my name is Coleman Ford, and today I'll be sharing with you my research proposal over the effects of vitamin D supplementation on infant growth. So, as for the audience this pertains to, it would conclude women whom are pregnant or plan to breastfeed, and also women who may plan on becoming pregnant in the future. So, as we know, there is an increased recommendation for nutrient needs during pregnancy, lactation, and infancy. And this is because it supports growth and development during this phase of life for not only the mother who is carrying a child, but for the fetus as well. And one key vitamin of importance during this time is vitamin D, as well as folic acid and several other nutrients. But today we'll be focusing on vitamin D for this research. So as for the first 6 months of life, breast milk or formula is the main source of nutrition. It is recommended that a mother exclusively breastfeeds for the first 6 months of life. So it is definitely of key importance for the mom to assure she is increasing her dietary uptake and getting those nutrients that are needed to not only support her needs, but the baby as well during um, those times of pregnancy and lactation. So, when referring to dietary reference intakes, many people do not meet the dietary requirements for vitamin D, which raises risk for deficiency. So, vitamin D deficiency is associated with an increased risk for preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, preterm birth, and several other tissue specific conditions. Now, as for the role of vitamin D, um, it is very important in keeping those bones nice, strong, and healthy. It reduces bone loss. Other various roles of vitamin D includes maintaining normal blood levels of calcium and phosphorus. It also assists in calcium absorption. It contributes to a healthy immune system and controls cell growth. As for the PICO question, during pregnancy and lactation, how does supplementation of vitamin D versus no supplementation of vitamin D affect an infant's growth during those first 6 months of life? That is the research question that will be conducted. And right below, you can see a graph of my conceptual framework. So looking at pregnancy and lactation, supplementation of vitamin D versus no vitamin D supplementation, and of course, the infant growth during the first 6 months of life. And listed below are factors that affect each of these topics. So there is quite a bit of research that is out there today regarding vitamin D supplementation in pregnancy and how it could potentially affect infancy growth. Here are 3 articles that I provided, and I will just give a brief conclusion over each of these. So in the first article, they found that maternal vitamin D supplementation from mid-pregnancy all the way to birth or the first 6 months has no effect on fetal or infant growth. So they concluded that no influence affects birth outcomes. For the second article, results showed that supply of vitamin D from breast milk is limited. Exclusively breastfed infants received over 20% of daily dose recommended by the Institute of Medicine for infants for that first year of life. And they looked at the concentrations of vitamin D from the mother's blood and breast milk samples, as well as infant blood samples. And then for the last research article, results showed that vitamin D supplementation associated with a reduced risk of small gestational age without an increased risk of fetal or neonatal mortality and congenital malformation. So they recommended that not going above that tolerable upper limit to avoid adverse effects. And this was a meta-analysis of 24 randomized controlled trials. So as for this research proposal, the aim of the study is to explore the pros and cons of vitamin D supplementation during pregnancy and lactation, and how in supplementing how it could affect infancy growth during the first 6 months of life. These are my sub-questions. So looking at the relationship between vitamin D supplementation and the growth in infants. Also, why vitamin D supplementation varies between formula feeding and breastfeeding infants. How geography impacts the decision to supplement vitamin D, and why do genetics play a role in infancy growth? As for the methods, this will be a randomized controlled trial that will consist of 15 months. So the 9 months of pregnancy that a mother goes through, and then the first 6 months of life, that would be a total of 15 months. There will be a baseline multiple question survey, and if subjects who are interested to participate in the study want to do so, they will be interviewed first to see if they're eligible. And then there will also be a closing multiple question survey. So the study will consist of of 100 subjects. They will all be first-time expecting and healthy mothers who will plan on breastfeeding, and the children will also be taken into the study results as well to look at the growth. And throughout the whole study, there will be several different pediatric visits following birth. So during these visits, the growth of infants will be observed and compared via growth chart percentiles. So the experimental control group will be 50, the placebo group will be 50. So just splitting in half. The control group will not only take a prenatal during pregnancy and lactation, but a vitamin D supplement as well. And then the placebo group will start that vitamin D supplementation during lactation rather than through pregnancy, but they will be given a prenatal during pregnancy and lactation. These are all of my definitions. So you got pregnancy, lactation, breastfeeding, vitamin D, dietary supplement, supplementation, infancy, and growth. These are all of key importance in this study, and you can read along to see each of these terms defined further. Here are the delimitations and limitations. So it needs to be taken into consideration that the study will only include pregnant women in the first trimester, and not over 10 weeks along in the pregnancy. That way it is not biased. And infants from birth to 6 months of age. So the infants of these mothers that are used in the study. As for grouping, I already went over that, the experimental and control group, as well as the placebo. The geography will only consist of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, so Central Texas. And as for limitations, there could potentially be breastfeeding issues along the way that hinder the mother from continuing breastfeeding for those first 6 months, as well as the vitamin D dosage amount. Is 600 a reasonable amount? Should it be less? Should it be more? Also, you can run into the potential risk of the mother developing another sac further along in pregnancy, which has happened. So twins or triplets, would that be something taken into effect? As well as the geography only consisting of women in the Central Texas area. And what about the time frame? Is 15 months a reasonable amount of time to look further into the infancy growth during those first 6 months? Or should it be longer? As for the summary, I hope to learn more about health benefits of breastfeeding and explore the importance of vitamin D during these stages of growth. So, pregnancy, lactation, and infancy specifically. And definitely want to expand the research pertaining to supplementation of vitamin D during this time. Here are my references. Thank you so much for listening.